Afflictions of the mind. In the last chapter, we learned how our thoughts can make us either happy or sad. These thoughts pour forth in a constant stream. Let us say that it's the weekend and we glance outside. We see that a nice summer day is ahead of us. We happily recall our plans to take a pleasant hike in the woods with some friends. Then a thought about layoffs in the next few months at work pops into our mind, and we sink into a gloomy mood. Thoughts of doubt and fear rush through our mind and occupy us for several minutes. Finally, we put the matter out of our mind and another thought pops up unexpectedly. We forgot to go to the store yesterday to pick up bread for breakfast. Do we have time? Yes, just enough. So we dash out of the door to go to the store. On the way, multitudes of thoughts run through our mind. The road has a pothole. The driver in front is too slow. Is there anything else to get from the store? And so it goes on and on, incessantly, day after day, thought after thought after thought. One guru called his disciples around him. He related a hilarious joke that made them all laugh. The guru then proceeded to relate the same anecdote again. This time, some sniggered while others smiled politely. But the guru did not stop there. He went on to repeat the same joke before them. This time, they could only manage a sheepish grin. Not to be discouraged, he related the anecdote once again. Now one of the students could not restrain herself anymore. She said, Gurudev, your joke has become very boring. You have already repeated it 4 times. The Guru replied, if you get bored listening to a hilarious joke again and again, then why do you go on recording thoughts of fear, misery, and hurt in your mind? Is there any way to control the constant flow of thoughts within us? The subtle machine inside that generates thoughts is the mind. And hence, the key to controlling and managing thoughts will come with a deeper understanding of the functioning of the mind. Theories about the mind. How does the mind function and what is its correlation to the behavioral traits of people? Psychology is a branch of human knowledge that attempts to analyze the science of the mind and behavior by establishing general principles and researching specific cases. It is recognized as an academic discipline as well as an applied science. Allied to it are branches of psychoanalysis, psychotherapy, psychodynamics, psychiatry, and many more. Some of the more popular branches of psychology are shared here. Psychoanalysis. It was Sigmund Freud who first made Western psychology famous. Freud, better known as the father of psychoanalysis, was the first to introduce the concept of an unconscious mind. At the end of the 19th century, he presented his theory of psychoanalysis in Austria. Psychoanalysis is the study of the theories and therapeutic techniques that aim to explore and cure the unconscious mind. According to Freudian psychoanalysis, the human psyche comprises of ID, ego, and superego. The ID refers to the inherent drive we seek to fulfill because we believe that by doing so, we will be happier. The superego is our value system. It is partially learned in childhood and is partially an inherent value system. The ego is the mediator between the superego and IT and works on the reality principle. That is, it helps us determine which drives to act upon. Freud theorized that conflict between them results in disorders. Analytical psychology. This is the school of psychology founded by Carl Jung. Early in his career, Jung was a close associate of Freud. The two had a great rapport, and at one point, Freud considered Jung as his successor. However, Jung's idea later began to diverge from Freud's, and the two broke away. There were two key points of contention between them. A. Freud focused on the unconscious as a repository of negative emotion, while Jung considered the unconscious as collective and personal because he believed it contained memory and ideas inherited from ancestors. Freud's theory B. Freud's theory focused on sexual development, while Jung focused on the collective unconscious or universal symbols that all can relate to. The primary goal of life, according to Jungian philosophy, is the individuation of the self with both its conscious and unconscious aspects. The unconscious can be related to or understood via symbols seen in daily life, such as in dreams, art, religion, personal relationships, and so on. The process of bridging the conscious and the unconscious together leads to harmony. Obstacle or disruption can result in disorders. Cognitive psychology. In the field of psychology that aims to understand our higher level mental processes such as attention, creativity, language, memory, perception, problem solving, thinking, and their impact on behavior. Among other things, these processes involve the use of sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. The process of language acquisition, the impact of language on mood and behavior, and other related topics are helping researchers identify learning disabilities at an early age. The studies on attention and memory have led to significant gains in treating attention deficit hyperactivity disorder (ADHD). With such relevant topics and backed by scientific research, cognitive psychology quickly gained credibility and application. Other branches of psychology, such as abnormal psychology, developmental psychology, and social psychology, and the field of economics and linguistics, draw heavily from cognitive psychology. Behaviorism. This branch of psychology disagrees with the psychoanalytical approach of introspection and focuses on how external environments impact behavior. B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning model accepted and acknowledged the role of thoughts and emotion as influencing one's behavior. This was in contrast to the previous theory of classical conditioning that focused only on external stimuli. Behaviorism, together with cognitive psychology, is widely used as cognitive behavior therapy (CBT) to treat disorders such as anxiety, depression, mood disorders, phobias, and post traumatic stress disorder (PTSD), among others. Humanistic psychology. While Rogers is widely credited with the establishment of humanistic psychology, it was Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs that brought it to the forefront as a distinct branch. Psychologists affiliated with this branch emphasize human beings as more than sum of their parts. As a result, instead of focusing on one mental affliction, they prefer to view the individual as a whole. According to Maslow, we all have basic physiological needs. According to Maslow, we all have basic physiological needs such as hunger, thirst, sex, and sleep, among other necessities. As these are fulfilled, safety and security needs of job security, safety of home, and so on start becoming important. As these needs are satisfied, the need for love and belonging starts gaining prominence. Beyond this is the need for achievement and respect. And lastly, in the need for self-actualization, where one is working purely for the joy of it. Existential psychology. This branch of psychology is most concerned with fulfilling one's meaning in life. Essentially, it looks for universal principles that apply to all instead of isolating people or their behavioral patterns. Existential psychology lists the four dimensions of human life: physical, relationship to one's physical self, health and well-being, relationship with the external environment, social, relationship with others, psychological, focus on one's attitude and experiences, and spiritual, relationship with the unknown or discovering the meaning of one's life in a more personal way. Viktor Frankl is one of the most famous existential psychologists who later broke away and developed a branch of therapy called logotherapy. Positive psychology. As recently as 1998, Martin Seligman formalized positive psychology as a valid branch of psychology. Together with Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he defined positive psychology as the scientific study of positive human functioning and flourishing on multiple levels that include the biological, personal, relational, institutional, culture, and global dimension of life. The basic premise here is to look to the future to live a happy and meaningful life. By doing so, one learns to focus on the positive. This is in stark contrast to other branches of psychology that focus on disorders of the mind. As you can see from the above, there is plethora of perspectives on the functioning of mind. These are helpful branches of psychology. However, truly meaningful and lasting improvements to the mind's activity cannot be accomplished without a profound comprehension of the mind in the context of all creation. In this book, we will learn the science of the mind and intellect as contained in the ancient Vedic text. In the divine light, we will discover practical tools to use in everyday circumstances and situations. These tools will help us to not only lead a better life, but also to fulfill the objectives of our sojourn on planet Earth. The ancient science of Vedic psychology. Astonishingly, the science of mind was perfectly explained 5,000 years ago in the ancient Vedic scriptures. The science, which we can call Vedic psychology, described the mind's working so clearly that, in contrast, the empirical theories of modern psychology pale into insignificance. Vedic psychology is elaborated in great detail in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita, along with other Vedic scriptures. These ancient texts have been greatly acclaimed by several famous Western scholars. To call a few, whenever I have read any part of the Vedas, I have felt that a divine light illuminated in me. In the great teaching of the Vedas, there isn't a touch of sectarianism. Henry David Thoreau, American writer and philosopher. When we read the philosophical monuments of the East, above all those of India, we discover in them many truths so highly elevated in contrast to which the European genius has stopped, that we are constrained to bend our knees before the philosophy of India. Victor Cousin, French philosopher. When I read Bhagavad Gita and reflect about how God created this universe, everything else seems so superfluous. Albert Einstein, American scientist. There is nothing in this world as elevating as the Upanishads. They have been the solace of my life, and they shall be the solace of my death. Arthur Schopenhauer, German philosopher. If these words of Arthur require any confirmation, I shall gladly give it as a result of my lifelong study of the Vedic scriptures. Professor Max Muller, German Orientalist. Eternal philosophical truth has seldom found a more striking and decisive expression than in emancipating knowledge of the philosophy of the Upanishads. Paul Deussen, German Orientalist. Access to the Vedas is the greatest privilege this century may claim over previous centuries. J. Robert Oppenheimer, American nuclear physicist. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the clearest and most comprehensive summaries of the perennial philosophy ever to have been done. Aldous Huxley, English writer. Vedic philosophy presents the origin and creation of mental afflictions in a systematic, scientific, and logical manner. It further teaches us the techniques for purification of the mind and the solution to problems of everyday life through improvement in our thinking. Let us embark on a thrilling journey on the pathways of Vedic psychology. I assure you that it could be the most rewarding journey of your life. But the subtle science requires an open mind, concentration, and dedication to understand it. Therefore, patiently read the logic enumerated here, down to the last link, and you will find that all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle of the mind's functioning fall neatly. into place.